morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2016 presidential speech presentation. In front of you are the four presidential candidates: Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Jill Stein, and Gary Johnson. You're about to hear their stance on four main topics: foreign affairs, gun control, education, and immigration. Thank you for paying close attention as we try to educate you before you vote on Tuesday.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please help me welcome the only candidate who knows what Aleppo is, isn't under federal investigation for deleting 30,000 emails, and is healthy enough for the Oval Office. Let me introduce to you Donald Trump.
I am the Republican candidate for the 2016 presidential election, Donald Trump. People judge me on my appearance. They say I have orange skin, fake hair. But does that really matter? We need a president who can speak out about the issues, someone who's passionate about his country, somebody who will make America great again. I am devoted to making the United States a country of generosity, but also a country of law and order. I believe in terminating ICE ground troops, not limiting gun sales, improving education for our schools, decreasing military expenses, and stopping illegal immigration. Together we will lead our party back to the White House, and we will lead our country back to safety, prosperity, and peace. Our election is occurring at a time of crisis for our nation. The attacks on our police and the terrorism in our cities threaten our very way of life. Any politician who does not recognize this danger is not fit to lead our country. One of the issues I'm referring to is fighting ISIS ground troops. For years I've been saying, don't go to Iraq. When the U.S. went into Iraq, they destabilized the Middle East. That was a big mistake. Fighting ISIS ground troops is the best option we have, because I want to take away their wealth and put the fighting to rest to create peace. We will build a military that's going to be much stronger than it is right now. It's going to be so strong, nobody's going to mess with us. But you know what? We can do it for a lot less. If we don't spend as much on the military, then we can use the money to provide for others, such as helping small businesses. How do we truly make America safe again? During the 20th century, the United States defeated dictatorship, Nazism, and communism. More issues have come up since then, such as Islamic terrorism, and overseas, ISIS has carried out one unthinkable crime after another. Many people have been injured and brutally killed. These wrongdoings need to stop. You know what? We can stop them. The number of new illegal immigrant families who have crossed the border into the U.S. so far this year already exceed the number from 2015. They are being released by the tens of thousands in our communities with no regard for the impact on public safety or resources. I want to extract all the illegal immigrants from our country and send them back to their homeland, to be able to allow them to re-enter legally. This election is our last chance to secure the border, stop illegal immigration, and reform our laws to make your life better. Illegal immigrants are coming to our country to take jobs that offer them greater opportunity, and they are getting paid less wages than the normal U.S. citizen. They are taking the jobs away from the poor and middle class. The Second Amendment to our Constitution is clear. The right of the people to bear arms should not be violated. I believe that every law-abiding American has the right to own a gun in order to protect himself and his family. I think about it, if the people attacked in Paris, California, and all the other places suffering from terrorism had guns, we wouldn't end up with so many casualties. We're the only country in the world that has a Second Amendment protecting our freedom. Why should we take that away? We do not just need guns for terrorism. We use guns recreationally, for sports and hunting, and for the protection of businesses and property. If you create gun sale laws, the guns will only end up in the hands of malicious people and not in the hands of people in need of protection. Let's talk about another issue in our schools, gun-free school zones. Hillary, my opponent, wishes to strongly enforce gun-free school zones. You know what I call that? Bait. I mean, you have seen what's been happening in our schools. I want to get rid of gun-free zones. In some cases, teachers should be allowed to have guns in classrooms. But don't get me wrong, I am not promoting guns in classrooms. Since I have announced running for president, I have addressed many of today's biggest education policy issues. As president, I will establish school choice to every American child living in poverty. We need to fix the way we teach because right now we have a broken education system. One thing contributing to our broken system is Common Core. Common Core is a set of academic standards in mathematics and English language arts that eliminates parental control over education. I've been consistent with my view on Common Core. I say get rid of it. It is a very exciting time for America. Your voices represent a bright new future for our great nation, full of more opportunities for everyone, not just a select few. Together we have created a movement. Together we are creating history. Together we are bringing back the American dream. And together we will make America great again.
Please welcome the most qualified candidate for this election. She has been a politician for 30 years and hasn't evaded taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, Hillary Clinton.
Thanks. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be here to speak with you today as I wish to share my policies and ideas on several of our national issues. These issues are critical to our country's prosperity. First, before we start, I would like to speak about my competition for the White House, beginning with the Green Party candidate. I would like to inform you about Jill Stein. Who is she? Exactly. Now, Gary Johnson is a nice guy. I'll give him that. Problem is, he doesn't know what Aleppo is, and he can't even name one world leader. That's enough about him. And last of all, Donald J. Trump. This guy wants to build a wall and make another country pay for it. This is ridiculous. He's by far one of the most unqualified candidates to run for president ever, falling only behind Jill Stein. That speaks enough for itself. Also, it turns out that reality TV stars should run for the presidency. One of my concerns is our fight against ISIS. As president, we will continue to stay the course and use drone strikes to combat terrorism, especially ISIS. I'm strongly opposed to deploying any ground troops to fight ISIS, unlike my main opponent, Donald. He will risk your lives, and I won't. With national terrorism, I will do all I can to stop these terrorist attacks in our nation. We will not allow people on the no-fly list or terrorist watch list to purchase guns or any other weapons. Another really big issue this year is our federal government and our military spending. I would also prioritize spending in our military, which means better use of taxpayer money, which saves money. That means investing more money for fighting current threats like cyber attacks. One of the leading topics this election is immigration and border patrol. My main opponent, Donald, wants to close all the borders and build a wall. I disagree with this because if we follow Donald's plan, then we won't be able to have much trade. I know that a lot of these immigrants are entering our country illegally, but we should just let them off free and enforce the new immigration law starting now. Some of these illegal immigrants are coming to get jobs and send money back to their families in other countries. Donald would like to deport these hard workers, while I respect that kind of dedication. Another topic of discussion this election year is gun control. I think that there should be gun control because average day people who are just minding their own business are being killed all because of accidents. With me as your president, I will take charge of this issue, unlike Donald.
Wrong.
With me, I don't want to impose too much gun control because everyone should have the right to bear arms, but have common sense gun control. Common sense gun control has the perfect amount of limitations as well as freedom to sell guns and use them for your protection. I will have more background checks done by the gun dealers and have their license revoked if they break the laws for selling guns. We will inhibit people that have bad records and are mentally ill from obtaining guns. Another topic is guns in schools. Since day one, Donald wanted guns in every school, but that is just way too dangerous. I believe that parents and teachers have the right to keep guns out of classrooms, just like most of Donald's hotels.
Wrong.
Our education system is a big issue this election year, which involves Common Core. I have always supported national standards. I would have all the schools under the same standards. As president, I would fight to end student debt from college. One way to help end student debt is working together to make states invest more in higher education and community colleges free of pay with good education. I hope that this speech gets me a vote. And how about Hillary for 2016?
Aren't you tired of feeling that you must vote for either the Republican or Democratic parties? Are you sick of the liars, cheapskates, lobbyists, bribers, and dynasties involved in politics? Doesn't America need a change? Don't vote for the lesser of two evils. Vote for the greater good. The Libertarian candidate, Gary Johnson, will protect your rights and freedoms and keep the government out of your personal affairs.
Thank you for allowing me to be here to speak to you. Today I will discuss several controversial topics in today's politics: education, gun control, immigration, and foreign affairs. I will start with probably the most important topic today in today's politics: foreign affairs. My simple philosophy is that unless the U.S. is attacked or threatened in any way, we should leave countries to their own affairs. For example, although our ally, we should stay out of Israel's business. We should not tell them what they should do with the Palestinian statehood situation. We will only make enemies the more we meddle with the affairs of other countries, especially in turbulent areas. In the way of fighting ISIS, I believe that the U.S. has no place landing ground troops in Iraq or Syria. This, as we can see, has failed. We should also end our drone attacks. These attacks usually end with the killing of innocents and spark anger toward the U.S. I also think that in order to work on the situation in Syria, we should ally ourselves with Russia. We can cut military spending up to 43% and still have a strong national defense. I'm a strong advocate for keeping the national government out of people's personal rights. Therefore, I do not believe that the government should be allowed to search or regulate people's email, online doings, etc. We are not the world's policemen. Serving as governor of a border state, I have lots of experience with immigration, unlike Donald Trump. I believe that immigrants should be allowed to enter the U.S. and get work visas without becoming a U.S. citizen. The jobs they would hold would not keep an American citizen from having a job. Building a wall along the border, as Donald Trump suggests, would waste millions of taxpayer dollars and wouldn't even be effective at keeping immigrants out. The real reason there are so many immigrants is because the immigration system is flawed, not the border security. I also believe that we should allow some Syrian immigrants into our country, but without becoming the refugee base of the world. Gun control is a very important and controversial topic in today's politics. I firmly believe that we should protect the Second Amendment, but also keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people. I believe that students and teachers, not just security, should be allowed to carry a gun in school. My reasoning on this stands behind the fact that many shootings have occurred in gun-free zones. Owning guns in this case would allow for a form of self-defense. I also believe that people on the terror or no-fly list should be allowed to own guns. There is a 3 to 4% error rate on this list. Those who are not a threat but on the list could be denied the right to own a gun. My ideas for education defend state and individual rights and will keep the national government from having control in the education system. I therefore plan to cut the Department of Education and have the school systems run by the state. This will also end Common Core, a curriculum that sets the standards for math and English and refuses to allow students, teachers, and parents any say in education. I strongly support school vouchers, which allow more K-12 students to choose where to attend and not be forced to go to a nearby public school. In conclusion, my policies and ideas for this country will lower the national debt, keep the United States safe, and lower the amount of government involvement in ordinary people's lives. I will make America sane again. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the person I am about to introduce to you is probably the least known candidate this presidential election. But that doesn't mean she's the worst. She's this year's Green Party nomination for president this year. Please join me in welcoming Jill Stein.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be here with all of you. I simply cannot express just how glad I am to be in the running for president this year. Between Gary Johnson, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and myself, there are many options for you to choose for your president this year, and I can understand still being decided at such a late date. This thought crossed my mind, and that is why I decided to speak to you today, to explain to you some of my policies and hopefully sway some of you over to my side. But even if I don't, I simply wish to inform you on my policies. We live in a world gripped by terrorism and war. Even if we try to ignore it, it is still there. However, we should not increase our military budget to fight these foreign threats, and I believe we should slash it by about 50%. We should not have gone into Iraq to begin with. It was a bad idea and destabilized a nation in an area that is still not recovered. As you probably know, I am very much an advocate for world peace, and I believe that we should keep our ground troops out of the Middle East to fight ISIS, Syria, and other threats, as we would just be wasting precious human lives. I also believe we should not send drones in. Drones are dreadful, and they end up killing more innocent people than killing people who are actual threats. We should, however, ally ourselves with Russia, and together we can fight the interlocking threats that both of our nations and the world face. Immigration has been a huge issue this year. Many people in this country believe that immigrants are coming from Mexico and other Central and South American countries into our communities to cause crime and steal our jobs. America has always been a place where people from all over the world have come for a better life. That is why in the late 19th and early 20th century we were called the Great Melting Pot. I do not believe that we should build a fence or a wall along the border to keep out immigrants. They came for a chance for a better life, and I believe we should let them have that. I also do not believe that the undocumented residents that are immigrants that are currently in the U.S. should become permanent residents. Nor do I think we should deny Syrian and other Middle Eastern refugees into our country. They are fleeing from problems that have been caused by people in their own country and by the U.S. We should put out the welcome mat for the people who are fleeing problems that we have played a hand in causing. The Second Amendment states that people have the right to bear arms, but lately guns have become a controversial issue. Many mass shootings have happened in the last year and have caused more deaths than I believe anyone cares to admit. It is obvious that we need to be more careful about who has access to our guns and just completely place a ban on assault weapons that should not be allowed to the public anyway. Counties have to be able to regulate their guns, so the people who do not deserve access to them do not get them. In this way, we can fight growing gun violence in our towns. We need to keep our guns out of the hands of the mentally ill and those who have a criminal record, because they may not be able to be trusted with their guns. We also need the end to the gun show loophole, because the people who would not be allowed to have guns otherwise can still get them this way. As for guns in schools, that is a harder topic to take a stance on. It is known that if a person has a gun in their house, they are more likely to be injured by their own gun in defending against an intruder with said gun. But lately, so many mass shootings have happened in schools and so many people have been killed that I can see the reason for calling for guns in schools. But we need to take our public safety into account before I make a clear decision. Children are our future, and educating our children should be one of our top priorities. However, some things concerning education and our education system have been rethought and changed in the past few years. Sadly, some of these changes have not had the desired effect on today's youth. Take, for example, Common Core. Common Core is a set of standards in math and English created by the federal government and state commissioners of education. Common Core has set up many major standardized tests which sets schools and students up to fail. Within 2 years after the rollout of Common Core in New York, 20% of students were sitting out of these tests in protest. The push for standardized testing is destructive, and I promise as your president to stop it. I also promise as president to abolish student debt and free a generation of people from debt servitude. I know there are many of my policies that I have not addressed today. These are the most important and controversial issues for this election. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, and you have been a wonderful audience. I do hope I was able to sway some of you to my side, and I will get your vote. Again, thank you for letting me speak to you, as it would be an honor to be your first woman president. I expect all of you to exercise your right as free Americans and vote on November 8th.
I would now like to open up the floor to questions.
Yes. Mr. Johnson, how are you going to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people, especially those on the watch list?
That's a great question. I am definitely open to discussion about how to keep guns out of the hands of the mentally ill. I believe that if you make it harder to get a gun, only criminals will have them.
Donald Trump and Mr. Johnson, what are your plans for allowing guns in the classroom?
That was a very good question. Hillary recently has accused me of wanting to mandate every school in America to allow guns in classrooms. That is not true. I don't know where she got that from. I don't believe in gun-free school zones. I believe that the school resource officers or trained teachers should be the ones carrying guns. I don't want to have guns in classrooms, although in some cases, teachers should have guns in classrooms for protection.
I believe that everyone should be allowed to own a gun for self-defense. For example, if you were a student and an armed intruder entered your school, wouldn't you like to be able to defend yourself?
Mrs. Stein, how are you going to free up college education for students?
Thank you for your question. It took $1.7 trillion to bail Wall Street out when they crashed the economy. However, it would only take $1.3 trillion to end student debt and save a generation of people who did nothing wrong.
Mrs. Stein, since you're anti-common and anti-standardized testing, what is your plan for education for youth?
I believe we should educate our youth for their entire lives, not just to pass a series of tests with some of the information that they will never use again.
Secretary Clinton, why do you approve Common Core when all three of the other candidates are strongly opposed to it?
I support Common Core because I want all of the schools to have the same standards across our nation.
Mr. Trump, what are your plans for the wall and how are you going to pay for it?
That's a very interesting question. I will build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. And I build them very inexpensively. I've negotiated with Enrique Peña Nieto, the president of Mexico, and we have not yet come to a conclusion, but as of now, Mexico will pay for it. Illegal immigrants and drug dealers are crossing the border because we don't have a barrier. We need to protect our country from harm, and I will do so with NATO's financial support.
Secretary Clinton, how can we trust you with nuclear launch codes if you can't even manage classified emails?
Great question. I didn't know that having a private email server was illegal.
Wrong.
What about not paying taxes for 20 years?
Mr. Trump, this sentence is not a debate. And with that, we'll conclude the presidential speech presentation. Sit down.